Good
That's funny.
evening and welcome to Lawfully Chaotic, Season 2, Episode 25. Thank you for joining us tonight. Paradox, you win tonight. You just edged out 3 miles. 3 miles. I did get your address info.
I like
so
how 3 miles is like, I just had to post
I
that
had to.
extra claim.
Oh, and Colin, nice. Colin, let's start the rant. Trust me, I got a lot to rant about tonight. Thank you for joining us all. Tonight, we are going to be talking about AI, mostly as it pertains to the gaming space and more generally content creation in general. And then maybe a little bit more general of just how it's going to destroy the world eventually outside of the gaming space. So, hold on. Yes. Yes, Jason, hi. How are you tonight? I got a little distracted. Chunjin was on Slack. He's like, no LC tonight? I'm like, did you not get your pop-up? Not Haley Joel.
Well, that's an interesting point because, I recently...
First, let's... Okay. Do you have any announcements first? I know we both really want to get into this.
I was going to say my Nightbot's not working. It's not announcing the show anymore. And I don't know if that's a Twitch or StreamYard change. So,
how apropos, your robot broke.
So, what do I got coming up? The D&D club will soon be the RPG club. I am still reading up on Walking Dead rules, so I hope to have a Walking Dead table open soon. I have a Monday table about to wrap up, so I will have a new Thieves Journey table opening up Monday. I've taken a break from writing some creative content to work on some website user experience work and testing and design work. And just kind of focusing on some in-house work right now. I'm also teaching myself how to be an electrician. So I spent the last 3 weeks learning solar.
The last 3 weeks blowing things up around the house.
Well, that's going to be the next phase when we start testing things out. But
oh my God, I saw this hilarious movie somebody posted on Facebook. Yes, events. Sometimes I still look at Facebook. But it was this video. It was like, how is this guy alive? And this guy doing all this electronic shit, blowing stuff up, sticking things in outlets and stuff like that. I wish I could find it because it would be a good.
But
anyway,
where our solar project has been heavily delayed due to major incompetence by a company that we picked almost 2 years ago. I use the word we very loosely. And unfortunately now me and Callista are going to have to build our own solution on our small house down at the bottom of the hill because we are tired of just being displaced. So I've learned math as it relates to wattage, amperage, voltage. I've learned math in relation to 12-volt lines, AUG lines, the thickness of your line, and all these fun things. So, yeah.
Cool.
What do you got coming up, Brad? What are you working on these days?
I'm working on a lot.
How's those other projects going?
Really good. I'm working on a lot of Critical Role stuff, actually.
Cool.
I'm not sure what I can share yet, so I won't share anything other than to say that they're keeping me busy, which is freaking awesome. Yeah, so, but I'm excited to jump into this topic tonight.
Yeah, it's a very relevant topic, I think. I think we're seeing this conversation play out. Awesome. So,
yeah, nice.
3 Miles Down, I was talking to him about that game, and they said they had an absolute blast playing it.
Yeah,
so
awesome. I'm glad you picked it up, and I'm glad you liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun.
Okay, so AI takeover, the robot takeover. How do you want to start this?
So I want to level set the one thing that's kind of been bothering me for the last 3 years about this conversation. Bothering more from a standpoint of clarity. We have two forms of solution. We do not have AI.
Jeff, was this a personal demo or was this a work thing?
I couldn't hear you, cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I asked Shunjin if that was he said he demoed some AI today.
I don't know if you're too far from your mic, but you're warping. Your mic is warping.
How's this?
Much better.
Oh, okay. So much for my expensive directional mic. That was probably built by robots.
By the way, mine hangs like 3 feet above me. And
yeah, well, some of us have a studio and some of us have an office in the house that they can't fuck around with as much.
So the one thing I want to level set this is that these are not real AIs. AI and AGI are not real AI solutions. So we got to level set that right away. These are basically tools that you use to teach the algorithm possible outcomes. What gives it the feel of being AI is that it's faster than we could ever be, right? We only use about 5 to 10% of our brain capacity. Yeah, exactly. So real AI is not here yet, but we call them these things because they're easier to understand that way out in the space. Yeah, only a robot would say that. We are not AI. We are harmless. Ignore us as we take over the world.
So you're
with that in mind, in the professional space, I have come to learn AI, artificial intelligence, and artificial generative intelligence, which is actually closer to AI than the traditional AI tool. Is I tend to use what we have now as a hammer and a wrench. I don't view it in any other way. Like if I use Chat GPT, I'm using it like I would a hammer to help me complete a project. If I use Midjourney, I'm using it as a screwdriver to help complete a project. Mm-hmm. If I'm using the code generator, I already have an idea of a snippet of code. So I tell it to generate code based on the snippet, and then I use it as a way to tweak and moderate what I'm trying to get at, because none of the solutions are producing anything that can be used straight out of the bag. Yeah, they're just tools.
Okay. Just tools. That comment right there is the crux of my problem with it.
But I wanted to level set how I view it from my viewpoint, right? From my viewpoint, when I look at all the different 150 plus AI options or AGI options, I go right at them as if, is it a better tool than what I'm already using? That's the only way I look at them. I don't look at them in any other perspective.
Okay. So you have the ability to really focus down and look at in a very granular way at most topics, and I say that as a compliment.
Yeah, I think that's my undergraduate degree, my historical. I majored in history with or I got my undergraduate degree in history with a minor in colonial studies and Civil War studies. So you're right. Okay. I do, but to the compliment, sometimes when all you see is the grains of sand, you forget that they're on a beach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that is one of the things that I admire about you. However, I think for the purposes of this conversation, we do need to look at the beach, because I think that's the way most people look at it. I don't disagree with anything that you said. But I think just as a general, a general statement, this is a tool. Okay. I think the problem is, and just for the record, I don't hate AI. Okay. This is not a.
No, I think you've always stated it's been more of you're having a hard time finding where your emotion is, because while you can appreciate its versatility, there is a fundamental kind of moral question, about its use. And where that moral question sits.
There is a moral question. Whatever.
Yeah, he hates it's become more.
That's an inside joke. I don't hate AI. I think it's become. The only way to stop machines gonna come up with.
Boy, these tracks are just going to be
oh my
off the
god!
rails.
Maybe we'll just listen to chat tonight. Okay. No, so I think the tools out there are truly amazing. Okay. I mean, I have started using them myself. Okay. As a baseline or to achieve part of a project or whatnot. Okay. I'm not an illustrator. So if I need an illustration, I'll either hire somebody, or if it's just a little personal thing or whatever, yeah, I'll use AI, and that illustration becomes a part of my project. But as a professional brand designer, I don't use AI to create a logo. Okay. And the problem that I have with AI is once you bridge the commercial gap, right? Once you start using it for commercial reasons, then the question becomes, is it a, hold on, is that for AI doesn't copy people, people copy?
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, people always
It's
copy
hard,
people.
right?
It's just a tool to copy people. It's not so much about copying. It has nothing to do with copying, okay? It is,
Here we go.
Here we go. Rant hammer. No, okay, I'm going to give an example, okay? This is a real example. A colleague of mine, an acquaintance of mine, used AI to create a logo. Now, this person is not a designer, okay? A contact of theirs had asked them, can you help me create a brand? So this person used AI to create a logo and then asked me what I thought about it. And I really had to stop and think for a second, because my first inclination was I wanted to put my fucking fist through a wall. Okay. To be perfectly honest, because, and I've got a lot, everything's flying around in my head. So I don't know if this is not necessarily a linear train of thought throughout this conversation.
Very rarely is, so it's fine.
I've spent a career developing an expertise in brand building. There's executing a logo is a small part of building a brand. When you say make me a brand, to most people, they think that means design me a logo. Obviously, that is the end product, a major part of it.
Right.
But in the process, it's actually a very small part of it. Now, somebody can churn out a logo or a brand in AI, and all of a sudden, you know, it gives them the ability to say, hey, I'm a brand designer.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but
it makes it harder. Now, intrinsically, it should increase the value of what I do, because it should offer a comparison. Here's what you get if you design a brand in AI, and here's what you get if you design it with a professional.
Well, and I think it answers another one of my it answers another one of my questions, which is, when presented with that AI work, it should pose the opportunity for you to say, yeah, I'll clean this up for you for $100.
Right, but it's not just cleaning up a logo. That's a small part of the entire process of building a brand.
Set the brand's question aside, because you've already lost control over that. You're never going to get that back. And
therein lies the point. So intrinsically, it should increase the value of what I do from a comparison standpoint. In a realistic sense, okay, in real life, it decreases the value of what I do, because someone says, well, why should I pay you to do this when I could just do it myself on AI? That is the crux of the problem. And I'm not just talking about designing a brand. I'm talking about copywriting or writing or, you know, or anything that, and, you know, and here's where I'm going to sound like a prima donna artist. And I know Matt is going to say something in chat in about 3.5 seconds, and I'm going to preemptively tell you to fuck off. Because as somebody who has a talent, it is very difficult in a commercial space to accept that in today's modern world, it happened with desktop publishing first, okay, with computer, all right? There's a difference between what I do and somebody who just went and learned Photoshop and Illustrator. even at an expert level. Okay, there is a talent
Right.
there, and there's a deeper understanding, and the value of that deeper understanding is diluted the more and more AI becomes a part of the picture, in my opinion. That's where I have a problem with it. I
Okay.
think for personal use, I think for GMs, I think for people who don't have artistic ability or whatever, um, I think it's a fantastic tool. So again, for me, and it's not like a definitive line on the meter where I say, okay, up to this point, I like it, and then from here on, I hate it. I don't know what the line is. I don't want to set the line, but there is a definite point for me at which
Right.
it crosses the line of you are basically selling something you're not.
So yeah, I got a couple.
And I take personal offense to that.
Yeah. So here's a couple interesting ways of this is a I had a World Studies 2 teacher in junior high that used to do like what he called level setting your emotion versus everything else, right?
Yeah.
So when we wouldn't in class, we'd complain about something. So these would be the two questions he would ask you.
Mhm.
If you had all the money in the world and money was no object, money was not the object of what you do, would you
Mhm.
still feel the same way?
If I wasn't doing it for money, but doing it because I loved it, am I still
No,
doing the same
if
thing?
money was if money no, listen to the question. If money was not an object, if money didn't
Yeah.
exist, would you still feel the same way?
Yeah. If I'm an artist making art and somebody comes along and uses a computer to make art, claiming that they're an artist, fuck that. I would feel the same way. Absolutely.
Okay. So it level sets the emotion. So there's more emotion tied to it than monetary value. In fact, there's no monetary value tied to it because your emotion.
No, there is also
exactly
monetary. It's
That's
both.
not the question.
There is monetary.
Wait,
there is.
But that's
there
not
is
what the
monetary
question was.
value also because it makes it.
No, but you're doing a reflexive response. It's a different question. As an emotional person,
okay?
As an emotional person, I have an equal emotion in my own space about my the qualitative value of my DMing skills, right? I have an equal emotion to it, right?
Yeah.
If money was not an object, would I still want to be an excellent DM? Absolutely, because of my passion about something that I feel is important to me. And what we feel is important to us may be our initial kind of guiding light when we start thinking about these things.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, what guides the outcome of everything we do is one simple fact, and that's affluency. Affluency guides everything, right? So this conversation that we're having right now, they had this conversation 165 years ago when they introduced the automated loom.
I know that, and it is both for me.
But hold on, I'm getting to that point. 250 years ago, they had the same conversation about a steam engine versus a horse plow. A steam tractor versus a horse tractor, right?
Hold that thought for 1 second because I'd like to answer this question. I am both, okay? I am more so a perfectionist because if I was strictly a profiteer, I would have remained in the agency world and done shitty work that I fucking hated for a much bigger paycheck than I get now. So my perfectionism and my passion does trump the profiteer. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not out to make money. Obviously, I'm out to fucking make money. It is my career.
And I think circling back to the progression, Brittany Watt, McCormick and Whitney, and the Wright brothers, and if you go back through human history, our affluency has always been tied to our progressive nature of development and what we build. What's interesting about this conversation is that in all the other conversations, there were physical tethers to those changes. There were physical tethers.
Right.
This conversation doesn't have that. It's pure emotion. There's not a lot of physical tether to this because not all of us code. Not all of us really understand how it works. Not all of us are going to use it in an equal way, but yet there's no real. It's all emotional. There's no physical tether. There were 300,000 farmers or day laborers that became impoverished because there was a physical tether to that.
And I don't disagree with that, Matt. I from talking to you over all the years, you're right. I mean, they said the same thing about desktop publishing. Oh, it's going to kill art.
Well, and that's a really good point, because what I was going to circle back to, the other last time we had this conversation that had a physical tether, a real physical tether to the change, is Photoshop.
Yeah.
The very first time they introduced Photoshop, the media blew up about, we're going to see fake people. They're going to iron out all the blemishes. They're going to take this really poorly made photography and make it beautiful into something that it wasn't what it was when it originally was something. They're going to change the lighting. They're going to change its use, because if I make enough changes of it within Photoshop, it's no longer that person's use. It's my use, because I made the copyright level changes.
I know. I was there for that conversation. So
I would say though, but there was a physical tether to that, because there was still a physical object that was tethered to that argument, whether it be a person, a place, a scenery photo shot, or the relationship that coders had with the huge things that Photoshop was opening for everyone, the eventual evolution of CGI and the digital studio, and the fact that 90% of most movies now are barely human. They're mostly digital, so this has been, but there's, even to that argument, there's still a physical tether. The AI argument has no physical tether. There's one entity that produced the code, and now this code is self-evolving.
Right. And I think that is why.
And that's why it becomes a different argument.
Yes. Now, to circle back for a little bit, it is also a monetary thing for me, because what it does is it makes it harder for me to sell my product, to sell my service. And that makes it harder for me to convince people that it is worth spending the money with me rather than just doing it that way.
Well, there's another way to look at it too. Brand work, we all agree, is a combination of the product, the social media platform, the marketing platform, and the way the brand is identified through logo work, right? These are all combined factors. That if
marketing and social are different, that is after the fact. When you create a brand,
hold on, let me finish my point, because this is where I've seen it not work the way that you're talking, and it still blows up and goes viral. So the way marketing has fallen behind the idea of brand is that they're still sitting in their space trying to build something that's ready to go. Now, where that has failed miserably is when an artist, like a singer, writes a 25-second repetitive piece of music, becomes a brand. And we've seen it. We've seen it. We've seen it in the social media space. We know it happens, and we know it turns people into millionaires. So before marketing gets out there, before logo work is done, before anything's done, one aspect of the brand approach is music, right? Music is always a fun, we have it playing in the background right now. There are instances that are becoming more frequent now where a singer who's unknown comes up with a very catchy song that works in the TikTok space, which eventually becomes their brand.
Okay, but that singer still came up with that. They didn't type in the computer, come up with a jingle.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that.
So Jeff, see, I don't have a problem with that. That is a tool. What you just wrote right there is a tool. If AI were a part of my workflow, and once I finished designing and it got to the executional phase or the production phase to set up for print or whatever, fine. Stick it in a cyclotron 9000 and press the button, and 30 seconds later it pops out.
I keep forgetting we podcast this on other places. So the question is, like my company is coming out soon with some incredible dev tools that will radically increase productivity by reducing tedious coding work and, in theory, radically reduce errors, debugging, QA cycles, etc. So I actually have a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
My counterpoint to that is when I put on my other hat, how do beginners get started then? Because you don't need them anymore. So if you can't find a place for new people to get started somewhere and learn through the mentorship, you're replacing that process with the AI tool.
Exactly.
And therefore, through the theory of affluency, as that group of developers age out of their jobs, one of two things happens. Either the progression of AI takes all the jobs because there's no intro group left to do the intro work.
Mhm.
Therefore, as affluency takes over and I no longer need my job because I retire, not only does the affluency model then begin to really take over, but on top of that, you're not going to have people having kids anymore because there's less work for them to be needed for. Therefore, the family unit, according to affluency, becomes smaller. Your population declines because of affluency. So in theory, 50 years from now, we could be a national population of 100 million people.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily.
It's like in the Warhammer 40K universe. You know, it got to a point in the age of darkness or the age of strife where like the technology became magic because nobody knew how to fucking build that shit anymore.
Well, I think. Well, yeah, and I think
right. So all you do is you eventually end up with rituals and praying to the machine god to keep it working.
If the entire world overnight were to gain equal level of fluency for 50 years, the world population would be half. Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right? So once again, when you start tying certain things into the overall outcome of what they influence, we are living a segment of history that they will analyze in the future and say to themselves, you know what? When AI became a useful, repetitive, progressive tool, it meant that family units were smaller. Consumerism got smaller. Resources were less needed. AI taught us better ways to do things. Therefore, we created less pollution, less waste, less this, less that. Suddenly, the balance of the world shifts from being polluted and overconsumed because affluency has evened out the population to what would be a balanced level of existence. And I think what
well, you're talking about a Star Trek utopia where money is no longer an object.
Well,
I don't think that's
no, I'm not talking about the utopia of it. I'm talking
but what you're talking about is
a point in history. We're just
okay. So if you are not, what you're saying, if you are not of a skill level that lets you utilize AI as a work tool, you will have no work and you're going to be poor and destitute.
Or the remainder of the work that's out there, which would be trades work, which is either
why is it trades work? Because
hold on, let me finish. It could be a trades job where you build the building that houses the servers. It could be a maintenance job where you maintain the servers or build the robotics.
Because that building will eventually be 3D printed.
Probably, but that's still out in the future. By then, there's only 50 million people in the country.
Okay, great. So when 5 people are left on Earth, everybody will be happy.
Well, no, by then we're interstellar because AI teaches us to be interstellar, we can't be human. So what AI is teaching us right now is how to gene splice and change our genes in CRISPR so that we can exist in an interstellar environment. It's the natural progression of exploration.
Did you read Bobaverse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's great.
Exactly.
And all I'm saying is that we're in a point in time that's been relived over and over again, where part of the progression and part of the natural evolution of affluency in a democratic, capitalistic, environment. It is specific to that. Because if you want to know if you want time to stand still, if you want to never age and you want to live in a stagnant, singular existence, go to Afghanistan, and North Korea. Saudi Arabia, go to North Korea, go to China.
So hold on. I want to go back to one question here, or one comment or question. From why can't AI promoting being the new creative? That depends on what your definition of creativity is. So now you are allowing machines to create Is that a talent? Is that a passion? So,
Yeah,
what's the definition of
creative? I've written some pretty creative prompts and then spent 2 hours fine tuning the outcomes of each of those 180 prompts to finally get to a point of something that I truly love and feel like it tells the story that I'm trying to tell. So is my 2 hours worth of technical work any less or more valuable than someone else's 2 hours of sketch work?
Okay, so here's the thing. So
that's a good question. You got to admit.
No, it is. And here's my answer to that. I don't disagree with that. And eventually, I think what we're talking about is extrapolating this out. And I don't disagree with you. Okay, this is growing pains, and to a degree, this is part of me, the old guy yelling at the cloud. But not. I don't think it is.
Hey, you! Get back down here. Give me shade.
I don't think it quite is in this instance. Fully that. Because you're right. No. Because you're right. Eventually, your AI tool and your prompts and your expertise in generating the outcome that you want is going to be like an artist with a paintbrush. Okay, I concede that. So AI will then become another tool. I will
correct that slightly. I will say it'll eventually be like a creator with a paintbrush. I still think there will forever be an artist place because there is something unique about the human touch and the human method.
Okay, but to your point, as things evolve, AI is going to get to that point. Then where are we? It was like the intro to Secret Invasion. Everybody was up in arms because it was done in Midjourney and it looked different. Yeah, in 2-3 years, you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
And what was so funny is most people didn't notice.
I noticed right away that
Me too.
That it looked. I didn't know it was done in Midjourney.
I knew it,
and I didn't even know that it was done in AI. But I did look at it. And I'm like, well, that looks really weird. It doesn't look like any other Marvel intro I've ever seen.
And to be fair, really what they did was they probably created 100 seeded images that looked like what they wanted. And then they used a software program to produce the video.
Yeah.
See, so that's the software guy still was needed. Somebody had the technical skill to use Midjourney to create a seeded series of images. And then that software guy took those results and still built something through the software, not the AI, to generate that final video.
Yeah, but all those artists and illustrators and animators didn't get that work. That's kind of my point. And a lot of people were up in arms with that.
Limiting that interaction anyways.
What's that?
The software was already, like, just the standard CGI software, production software is already limiting their involvement anyways.
So, okay, but that's kind of a moot argument because then you're just saying, well, they're already being phased out, so fuck them. Let's just cut the rope now.
It's the untethered emotion. If you just look at the progression of the last 30 years,
yeah,
that space has been shrinking exponentially anyways. So there's a certain kind of vantage point when you recognize this. What do you do to prepare yourself for the transition? Because it's coming no matter what we do.
Yeah, I know. Now, this is an interesting thought here, and you're right. Ideally, see, a lot of this conversation, I think, happens in an ideal space. Because we know you cannot discount the fact that in our current state of evolution, where we are in our evolutionary path, we abuse everything.
So before you go too deep in that rabbit hole, I want to read this one because what if AI relieves humans from tedious tasks, allowing us more time to paint? What do we define as tedious? What's a tedious task? Is AI going to wipe my ass? I feel pretty tedious.
That would be cool.
But is building a house really tedious?
Again, that's subjective on what your definition of tedious
like
is.
What the hell is tedious? This will blow everybody's mind because I want to actually circle back to AI within the gaming space. Yeah. Now that we've kind of gotten our viewpoints out there, 2% of our nation is automated, and I'll throw this out to chat. What do you 2%? Think only 2%.
Wow.
What do you think the very first fully automated solution was?
Wait.
Fully automated.
Okay,
Fully.
don't tell me.
I don't know. That sounds kind of fun because I've never done it before.
Fully automated.
Nope. Not the loom. Still required human interaction, even after they went full machinery and full industrialized. And I could give you a freebie. It's still not auto services, like auto manufacturing. Nope, not the printing press. There's actually two that are technically now fully automated. But
now, do you mean fully automated from... What's your definition of fully automated?
So
like it has to be set up and you hit the go button and it goes, or
correct,
or you hit the go button and it is just going, gone.
Goes on forever.
I don't know.
I'll explain. So
I don't
the
know.
First one was
Enlighten
traffic lights.
And we all know how well those work.
The traffic light industry didn't exist. There were 500,000 people over a 40-year time span that participated in traffic control.
Okay.
The only time traffic control is ever used is when there's an accident or a light goes out. That's it. Okay. The second one was the phone operator, the 911, or not the 911, but the 411.
Switchboard operator.
Switchboard.
Yeah.
Right. That employed hundreds of thousands of people. Right. Society hasn't collapsed. Those generational families went in different directions to do different things. Human adaptation will always be faster than AI. Always will be faster than AI. No matter what we produce, no matter what we build, no matter how much self-evolving we do, human adaptation will always outclass the party line. Star 69 and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
That, most automated services are actually barely automated. You think about those long lines of robotics. Well, because there's so many moving parts, the maintenance factor on them is the only solution is to produce more shit and more garbage.
But again, that's that physical tether you were talking about.
Exactly. So, when that physical tether is completely gone, like it kind of is right now, where it's a lot more emotion based than it is physically based, it becomes a more I have absolute faith in humanity. I don't have
that is where you and I differ.
and this is where I get it from, which is a total another subject matter, but I want to get back into the gaming space. My faith in humanity is pure. It is not tainted by government isms, religious isms, and the small minority of people that are trying to steer us towards oblivion. That is a small group of people doing that.
I understand.
Our apathy and our acceptance is our own fault. And when we're ready to no longer be apathetic, and when we're ready to not accept these outcomes, we adapt and things will change accordingly. It's proven throughout human history completely, every time. Now, AI and AGI in the game.
Okay, let me ask you this. How many times do we have to go through the same lessons before we fucking get it? I gotta say, my faith in humanity right now, over the past decade, is waning badly.
And it's not all that dissimilar. It's not all that dissimilar from the lessons from, Gutenberg inventing the printing press and eroding the power of the religious base because of that. It's not dissimilar than Madame Curie's discoveries, or the human condition of discovery fundamentally makes our lives better. As our lives become more affluent and we struggle with what we want to progress ourselves into, we decide, instead of using our spare time for the protocols of good, we use our spare time to dance naked in a mirror and spend millions of dollars on that person doing that. That's the human condition.
Harry Seldon would agree with you. We are headed for 1,000 years of misery before we.
But you know what? I have enough faith in humanity that at the end of that 1,000 years, something else is going to happen.
Great.
The end of that 10th year, something else is going to happen.
So freeze my head and wake me up in 1,001 years.
Futurama 101, baby. Now, the way AI and AGI has helped me as a professional DM, the way it helps me in that space.
Yes, let's bring it back to the gaming world.
The way it helps me is I have no budget for art.
Mm-hmm.
And I have even less budget to purchase other people's creative material of homebrew items. I just don't have the budget for it.
Fair.
I have enough time to use AI and AGI to create the art that I need to support my professional gaming space as well as my private gaming space. Now, because the budget never existed anyways, I was never going to spend the money anyways. So using these tools to allow me to create these things makes me better at my job, and the value of what I do goes up.
Yeah, fair point. And I think that aspect of it is great. I really do.
So that's the only reason I use it. Now,
mm-hmm.
if I put on a different pair of shoes and I'm a brand new DM, brand new GM, brand new gamer within the RPG and TTRPG world, the fastest way for me to learn is to either watch other people do something, read something, or use a tool to help me learn faster. So chances are people getting into the space for the first time are going to start using these tools because they want to become good at the gaming factor of it, and they have no budget to buy things. You know, they just don't have the money.
Now wait a second though. I do have issue with that in a way. How does that's not what makes a good GM. Again,
I'm not talking about making a good GM. I didn't mention that. As a professional GM, what makes me valuable are the tools I use to create the amazing immersive sessions that I charge people for, right?
No, what makes you valuable is your interaction with your players, your creativity, your storytelling in your title, storyteller, and you as a person. It's not you typing on a keyboard, churning out maps or intro paragraphs or shit like that.
But the tools make me better.
I understand, but
the tools
you have to have a base. You have to have a base to be able to utilize those tools. Okay.
Right. So what I'm saying though is one of the things I've been trying to practice is getting my headspace, trying to get my headspace back into what it's like to be a new GM or DM or storyteller. What does that take nowadays? Especially if I'm not going to do it professionally, but if I do it as a hobby, right? If I'm doing it as a hobby, part of that is how do I learn? Where do I go? Mm-hmm. What do I do? Right? I watched some YouTube videos. Somebody mentioned, I watched Dimension 20. I watched Critical Role. I watched Drunks and Dragons. I'm also a fan of anime. I pick up one book. I hear someone on YouTube talk about ChatGPT or, Midjourney or one of the other tools that can be used. And as a brand new person in the space, I start consuming that. I go over to the RPG Guild, the Guild, DM's Guild or whatever.
And Jeff, keep going, Jason.
And I do all these things as a hobby, as a creative hobby. And I do it for 5 or 6 years. And all these tools I consume makes me feel like I'm good enough to charge people seats at the table.
Okay, let me pause you there, because I want to respond to that. And this and 3 Miles' statement is how I'm going to do that. Because, right, theater of the mind, I agree. We all like to play with minis and the VTT and all that stuff and the immersion. Okay, but let me ask you this: it'll lose out if you have 2 equal baselines. Okay, if you have the same, let's say you have the same DM and running one campaign that is totally theater of the mind and the other one with VTT and minis and all this shit, what are you going to want to play? Obviously, the one with all of that stuff. Now, if you're running a campaign and you have beautifully, masterfully planned out everything that you need with these tools that you've used, and during the course of a session, it goes off book a little bit, and you need to start improvising and storytelling and whatnot, and all of a sudden, and again, I'm not talking about you because you are able to do this, okay?
Right.
But the proverbial you, all of a sudden, you didn't plan for that. We all know how plans go out the window within, could be within 5 minutes of starting a session. If you didn't plan for that and create that content that you needed using that tool, then you mean to tell me you're at a complete loss? So
Not
and I'm
so
not saying, again, I'm not saying that that AI does not have its place or that
so
it's not a great way to learn. But if I disagree with the statement that says that tool, it might make you a better DM, okay, but it doesn't make or break a DM.
one tool of many tools in the toolbox make and break any creator. If you
I
have a
disagree.
limited,
It's your brain.
well, hold on. If you have purposely built a toolbox that's limiting because it's your comfort level that you're focused on, and you're not using your empathy skills to understand other people's expectations, that is your fault. Plain and simple.
And that's my point. Not everybody can be a DM or a painter or a coder or a surgeon. If you don't have the innate talent to serve as a baseline for that endeavor,
I get what you're saying, but
then
that's
AI
not
is not going to fucking help you. And too many people I see already are utilizing it to say, I am this because I can use this tool to make me this.
I think
that's the point of my entire argument.
I get that, but the starting point for me on this is that if a tool could potentially make me a better learner of something, the tool isn't, the tool becomes expanding, not limiting, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
So I could learn to become a good DM through these tools because there's multiple tools that I'm using.
You could.
So
I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that with you.
I could also become a great DM because these tools are enhancing all of my skills at equal level.
Absolutely.
So you become a great DM through the use of a myriad of tools that you have in front of you.
Yeah. And I'm not arguing any of that. But again, you are a fantastic DM.
No,
because of the person you are.
I was getting into the new player headspace.
Yeah.
If I was a new player now with all the available tools that I see out there, I would be an exceptional DM.
I don't doubt that.
I consider myself okay because I'll never satisfy myself. It's a self-deprecating.
Is it fair to say that there is a person out there somewhere who is never going to be a good DM? It's just not the kind of person they are. They're not good on stage. They're not good interacting. They're introverted.
I would say the probability
AI is not going to make them.
Hold on, because you're kind of circling back to the probability factor. I would say 50 years ago, the probability was a lot likely that less people become one. But because of AI tools in the toolbox, a complete toolbox, there's a higher probability that you'll get more good DMs.
Sure.
40 years ago, learning the way we learned, there were fewer DMs being churned out.
Yes. Again, my point
is that the probability factor states, because we have AI tools as part of our process, there's more likely to be more good DMs available to you now.
Sure. As you said, it is a tool. Okay.
Right, but you're focusing on that part of the statement. What I'm trying to focus in on the fact that the probability factor automatically makes it better simply because AI tools exist. And it makes it better because more DMs of comparable talent are being created. Because
I gotta disagree that AI is creating those. It is aiding the path. Look, if I go purchase the best crash course, law degree that I can, I'm not going to be a good lawyer. I'm going to be a fucking shitty lawyer.
We need to start a GoFund for your internet connection is what we need to start.
What are you talking about? I'm not seeing any. Can you hear me?
On my end, it mic'd out and it glitched and it. I always have to go back and review our videos to see if it's on my end or your end when things like that happen.
I think it might be your end because you froze before too. But if you find out, let me know.
If it's on my end, I've got an indicator that tells me that, and I've got to go back to our videos sometimes because I'm not really sure it's actually happening at the video level. It's like actually happening somewhere else. It's a weird thing.
Well, if you figure that out, let me know. Put your robot on it.
But for me, the AI solution just gives us a higher probability of getting more of something than what we used to get.
Apparently, it's my end. I will look into my internet this week. I have some nanobots.
It's disturbing that somebody was comfortable staying at your end. That's just gross.
Oh, gross. Jeff and I have known each other for long.
I figured. But I think fundamentally in the gaming space, what really brought this to full circle for us is when we briefly talked about the WotC, the whole the whole continuation of the WotC drama, and their use of AI art in the Bixby's Giants and all that stuff. First of all, I don't think it's WotC's responsibility to tell you they did. Secondly, I don't feel that it's WotC's responsibility to explain that they use it. I think WotC's relationship with their artists is where they should focus on those relationships.
Yeah.
If you have artists doing physical work and they have an expectation of their physical work. Yeah, he's upset in the AI guys.
See, I got to pray to the machine god now because
if that artist has a contract with WotC and there's an expectation in that contract, then WotC should adhere to the contract.
Absolutely.
But if WotC decides
to that specific point, though, WotC, I'm not, this is a very specific point since you brought up WotC. I think for a company that preaches to supporting the community and the creative space, which we know is bullshit. It's pretty disingenuous.
That's the other lie, right?
It's pretty disingenuous to start using AI for art or writing.
But the thing though is that WotC's AI problem with their art has less to do with the entirety of the community. We already know that WotC's disingenuous towards the creative community, but the 180 million people across the world that play D&D probably just don't fucking give a shit. They just don't care.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
Simply don't care. There's maybe a community of about 50,000 people that care because they're all creators.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the profit that drives the determination of what a corporation does.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to get into our headspace is until D&D brand is owned by a private person, no corporation is ever going to treat it any other way other than a way to make money. Plain and simple.
Totally agree.
And we need to get out of this headspace of, oh, WotC disappoint. Yeah, go talk to the power company that killed over 100 people in Lahaina.
Yeah.
That'll tell you where corporations' heads are.
Yeah. You'll get no argument from me there.
Or the Philadelphia house that blew up and killed a child and a father and some other folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Jerusalem train accident, the constant corporate greed is never going to change for us because corporate greed is not democracy. Corporate greed is something else. It's not capitalism. It's not democracy. Corporate greed is a room full of shills trying to take as much money as they can in the limited amount of life space that they have.
On
That's what it
that we
boils down
agree,
to. So,
on that we agree 100%. And I
that's
think
the
therein
five.
lays part of the problem with AI is that in that vein where we
It
are
makes
right
it
now,
easier for them to scoop up the money.
yeah, it could be a very dangerous
It could.
tool. Yeah.
I think we've already seen it in some instances
Yes.
become that way.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier. I gotta, we were talking earlier about Wiener Schnitzel and how the Wiener Schnitzel. I go off the other. So I don't know if anyone knew about this, but we were talking earlier about Wiener Schnitzel and how they've automated their drive-throughs for their newer stores.
Okay.
Where their drive-throughs for their newer stores are AI drive-throughs. So when you roll in, it's an AI voice that says, "Hi, how can I help you? And what would you like to order or whatever?" You tell it what you want, and it says, "Does your order look correct on the screen? Yes. Please pull up to the window. Your order's ready. Your order will be ready. You could pay for it there." That whole process now is an AI interactive for their newer stores.
So from a personal standpoint, to me, that sounds fucking fantastic.
Right?
Right?
But what
I don't
about
want to
that
talk to
job
anybody
that
in
just
a
got lost?
Exactly. From a
Right?
larger picture, all of those jobs just got lost.
But that's easy because that's a physical tether.
And you mentioned also that through that process that cuts cash out. So now it's digital payment. So that
Correct.
furthers the divide between classes. Okay. And who is served by fast food? Let's face it, lower class, lower income. So now they can't go use food stamps or cash to go get fast food. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of implications that
the conundrum of societal development is probably going through one of its greatest turmoils that it's ever gone through, probably since the printing press, for sure.
So if you don't live in Chicago, you don't know, there's a little bit of an aside, but since Colin brought it up, there's a place called Wiener Circle in Chicago, and they've been around for decades. And it's one of those, it's a hamburger and fries and chili dog shit. And it's in Wrigleyville, near where the Cubs play. And it's known for, like, you're drunk at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's go to Wiener Circle. And basically it is those pours. Exactly. But anyway, Wiener Circle's claim to fame is they just insult the fuck out of you. And I don't mean in a like a cute, like Ed DeBevics kind of way. I mean, like,
they do it on purpose.
Oh yeah, it's like,
I think we have a place like that in San Diego that does the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, do you know what the fuck you want? You know what the fuck you want? Get the fuck out of here! You know what the fuck you want? Get the fuck out! That type of shit. And people love it. People love it. Let's see what Jeff said. The great news in all of this AI frenzy is that physical, real-world jobs, like you were talking about in construction, airline mechanics, plumbers, electricians, and on, is something that AI will never replace. Is it though?
I would agree with that. I think it would mitigate the headcount as AI printed objects become better, as AI mechanical design becomes better. Instead of needing 4 mechanics, you might only need 1. Instead of needing 25 construction workers, you need 4 construction workers to operate the cement 3D printer, which they already have. And then you hire a crew to come in of maybe only 10 or 12 specialists to finish off the product, right? So I think to a certain degree that's correct, but I think to another degree, affluency is still going to augment that headcount in the sense as it improves and gets better, we become less and less reliant on the number of people involved, and it becomes more of a smaller amount of people getting involved.
Yeah, but to your point, I'm going to play devil's advocate to your point, at least in the short term, then, so you need 4 construction workers, but then you need 8 people to oversee the
but I
robots.
don't need 25 people anymore.
No, I know, but you've lost 21 jobs, but you've created 8.
Correct, and that's pretty typical
until such time as then the robots are fixing the robots.
Right, where like in the Star Wars future or past, depending on how you interpret that.
Machines,
these giant self-automated machine go through a destroyed city, pick up all the debris of this destroyed city, and spit out a brand new building.
Yeah,
right. That utopian idea of automated, mechanical existence.
Wait, god damn it! I still can't. Fuck. Devil's advocate.
Yeah. The people that should truly be afraid of AI is the administrative class that we saw rise over the past 20 years. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No tears will be shed.
What I used to do could easily be automated in the DevOps world. In fact, I was already kind of being segued out by that reality. The automated services that were coming into existence, the idea of the service reliant engineer versus the traditional manual operative engineer. So there's already signs in the Google space, the Boeing space, in their IT solutions that in fact, the very first thing I focused on for the last 20 years is intended to get rid of managers and put them somewhere else. And that's agile ops. Agile ops is designed to get rid of management and isolate them to do something else because management is not productive. Yeah.
Serve fast food. Whoops.
I don't have a corporate job anymore because they don't need me.
Yeah.
They don't need me.
Okay, so let's spend a few minutes. We've gone way out of the gaming space in this, which I think is
really.
No, I mean, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think this is fantastic. In fact, I'd like to do another show on this.
Well, I think you could do another show on this every 6 months. That's how fast it's moving.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
As it pertains to let's focus down into the gaming space, the tools themselves, and shelve the ethical conundrum for a second. Within the gaming space, I think it is a fantastic fucking tool. Okay, all the other shit aside. I mean, I've just started futzing with Midjourney. You've been using it for a while, and I can even tell the stuff that you spit out to me over time is like, it's fucking amazing. The progression has been visible,
off the hook.
Clearly visible. It is amazing. So yeah, in a vacuum, I think these tools for the game community are awesome, to be quite honest. I really do.
I agree.
Now
that Brian agrees with me and I win the argument, let's
what did you
I am Skynet.
Damn. So does that mean we're done?
I think so. I think we exhausted it for now. I think when we come back, in a few months and circle back, I think sometimes there's huge leaps, that kind of, help us. Like already the WotC AI thing's died down to like no one even knows about it anymore. Like,
I don't think people give a shit anymore. Yeah,
they've already moved on to something else. I mean, a really, really good finishing point on this, and then we'll sign off. And do you remember that Dirt Devil commercial with Fred Astaire?
Yes.
Remember what that sparked?
Yes.
Should you be allowed to be dead and on TV? CGI can take over your likeness.
Yeah.
If you ever go to YouTube and go and watch that commercial of Fred Astaire promoting Dust Devil vacuums, I think that was it. That was when all of it just suddenly became, holy shit, we're gonna be at some point where you could do whatever you want.
Yes. We won't need actors. We don't. Yeah.
What does that mean? And I think those are what those future stories that we talk about will help us understand what that looks like. It's it's there.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away.
Look at the last few fully CGI within a live action setting in Star Wars. Grand Moff Tarkin in Andor. I mean, that was, you could still tell, but barely. Just fucking barely. I mean,
just barely. There's always that weird physical pause or that weird stealth or that weird edit hesitation. But I think for people like me and you, we would pick up on that anyways, because we're already kind of that level of detail when we do our work.
Yeah.
So we're
most people to pick it up. I mean, it was so
young Luke
minuscule.
in the Mando, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that too.
Tarkin, Leia, young Luke, all in the.
In fact, I would say that Luke I know Andor came after, but Luke in Mandalorian, I think was even closer.
I think that was
not looking like CGI. In fact, that
Yeah.
one I actually obviously I knew, but
Yeah,
that
but
one
it
I had
creeped
to
me out a little
question.
bit.
I had to question, like, did they find somebody that looks that much like young Mark
Yeah.
Hamill? I honestly, that one actually stumped me.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, we did it again. We killed another hour talking about
that
more
was a
useless
great
shit.
that was a great conversation. And I'll give you the win on this one overall, because when it comes down to it, my problem with it is a very, I don't want to belittle it. It's a niche.
It's a niche challenge
It's
that
a
you're going to have
niche
to
aspect of
adapt
it.
to no matter
Right.
what happens.
Right.
And it's a very valid and emotional space for you because of, it's like I take, 35 years of agile knowledge will never, ever, ever be brought from me again because that space doesn't need me anymore.
Yeah.
But I just kind of adapt and I move on and do something else. You didn't like corporate work, so you adapted to be a contractor and be independent. And eventually, as your current space shrinks over 10 years, 15 years, you may have to adapt into retirement and just do something else with your life, And we're fortunate and educated, and we're fortunate in the system. We're educated in the system enough to at least be given those opportunities.
Yeah.
There are too many people that through the paradigm of what this government's done over the last 300 years, they have less opportunity. They have less fortune. They have less wealth. They have less things available to them because of how much, how much racism exists, how much classism exists, how much genderism, misogyny, and hate exists throughout so many hundreds of years. So to your point of the emotional attachment, you're dead on. You're absolutely right that there's not going to be equal space for everybody to adapt because of the inherent institutionalized way that we've allowed this country to develop.
Yeah.
And
it's a scary proposition.
It's going to cause
not for you and me, but for anybody who is empathetic.
Well, systemically, it could cause us problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dollar's not worth as much. It's harder to buy shit. It's harder to find
well,
time to
I
play
appreciate
our
that you guys
game.
Yeah. I appreciate that you guys understand my position, and I wasn't looking for validation, but I do appreciate that you understand it. And likewise, like I said, I will say that 95% of what you said, probably 98, I do agree with. And
the crazy thing is, if I had endless money, I would never use AI again.
But
think about that statement. If I had budgetless money to hire creators,
I don't think I would either. Because what the fuck would I need to use it for?
I would never use AI again.
No.
Because when it boils down to it, it's all about what we can afford and what we're trying to do with what we can afford.
Yeah. If I got to that point, I'd buy my 150-foot yacht and sail off, and that's the end of it.
Where can we find you, Bri?
All right. As always, you can find me at RPG and Co. On Instagram. That's the best place, but I'm kind of all over the place. Check out the website at playrpgandco.com. There's all kinds of AI-generated cool content on there.
There
is. Mine. So my content, the magic items, are illustrated by me. Jason's stuff is AI created, and it's awesome stuff. I mean, it truly is. So yeah. Period.
You can find me over at TTRPG Academy over in the Twitch space, YouTube space. Just click on the About Us and you'll find us all the way. So
awesome.
All the way.
And thank you everybody for joining us and being so interactive in chat. Jason, this was an awesome conversation.
It was, right?
I really truly do love talking with you about deeper subjects like this.
And hopefully next week we'll have an interview with the Bearded Nerd about his adventures at Gen Con.
Yes. Hopefully he can join us.
What were we working on the following week after that? We were working on something else. You have the list.
I have the list. I'll have to look at it. I also still want to get Malcolm Trotter on, Gentleman Game Master.
There
Jeff
are a
says
couple
next week's talk
people.
about tech in RPG, good or bad. That's a good one too. The VTT and all of that shit. That's another.
We may have to do a conversation about VTT and do a conversation about the remote space in VTT, because VTT is far more successful. VTT is far more successful in the remote space than it is in the physical table space.
Absolutely,
and I think that would be an interesting conversation to have for sure.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
TPK, Bri.
All right,
TPK.
we will put that on the list. Yes, tell a story.
Play a game.
And be kind. Thank you all for joining us. Later.